Good evening, Red Friedman.
Where are you?
I'm actually in the midst of the physical chaos called Israel. I'm in the
Oh,
Holy Land speaking to you from here. So, ahead of time, first of all, I want to welcome everybody. We are live. So, welcome, followers, to another episode, episode 5 of Elevate the Soul. And tonight, for me, we have a very, very special guest, at least personally to me. Everyone, as you know, as I tell you in my podcast, have to have a lighthouse, a beacon of light, someone to look up to in order to evolve spiritually and not just rely on ourselves only. In Judaism, there is actually a mitzvah saying, "Asele harav," make you a rabbi, make you a shepherd, somebody you can follow and somebody you can learn how to evolve spiritually through. So, just to introduce you, a rabbi, also a philosopher, someone with charisma, an author, and he's actually known as the most viewed rabbi on YouTube, Rabbi Manis Friedman. Welcome to the show. Just to tell you a little bit about myself. So my name is Mike Moshe Ben Avi, and in 2014, I had what they call a near-death experience or out-of-body experience following a fatal car accident on the way back from prison. Um, I was born pretty secular. I knew I had something special in me, but I was a rebel, quote unquote. But I lived the life of the physical. I enjoyed the ego as much as I could, and ego to me is the need to receive over the need to give. And after my car accident to change my life, in fact, blessed my life and made me see the truth from the outside. I zoomed out on reality. So even when people talk to me about religion, like I know my religion, I'm a Jewish person, but I see the world as spiritual and I see people as light and I understand things from the light perspective. So listening to your lectures, just bumping into one of your videos one time with my wife, with my Besheret, which is twin flame in New Age term, I guess, we were just enlightened by the light that came out. And I'm telling people, it's a rabbi, but the main thing is not Judaism. It's all about the soul because people from all over the place, people from different religions, people from different cultures, people from different beliefs resonate with him. And they all resonate around the same topics and in the same way, in a common way. And I knew that I had to bring you to the podcast because for the first time in a long time, I wanted to be enlightened and I want to have almost like a philosophical, metaphysical conversation. My podcasts are not in form of interview, but they're more like a conversation. But for this event, usually I don't plan everything. Everything just comes naturally from the soul. But for this event, I prepared questions because I wanted to just sit still and listen and so again, welcome to the show. And like I said, I'm in Israel in the middle of chaos. There's bombing outside day and night. I mean, literally, people don't understand. We're hearing explosions all day, every day. And in the midst of all that, I'm happy. I'm feeling that we are part of some biblical, metaphysical events that are just now manifesting into physical events like wars and chaos and but this is what you talk about. This is like delivery pain. This is like labor pain. This is like days of awakening. And so this show is for everybody, regardless their religion. We all concentrate and gather around the same purpose, which is the soul and the shama, of course. And I wanted to start with the first question, Rabbi. Can you share your perspective on what the soul is and what is the purpose of our lives?
every living thing has an energy, a vital force. That's what life is, a living energy. But an animal has a living spirit, not a soul. Only a human being has a soul. The difference is a soul is not just a living energy, but it's a purpose driven energy. It exists for a purpose and it feels purposeful, and it needs to know what is the purpose. That's why human beings get depressed and animals don't, or different. An animal is not bothered by purpose, it's bothered by survival. A human being would much rather have a purpose than survive because it's closer to our essence. The purpose is closer to our essence than survival. And that's been on display throughout all of history where people are willing to die for what they believe in. So if you want to define soul, soul means a sense of purpose.
And what is this purpose, Rabbi?
Okay. So if we don't know the purpose, then it drives us crazy. Like you remember that you have an appointment and it's very important, but you don't remember with whom. Like you know you have to be somewhere very important, you don't remember where. It drives you crazy. So, what is our purpose? The best way to put it is the purpose for which we exist is the exact opposite of what religion tells you. As far as I know, every religion agrees on one thing: we don't belong here, we belong someplace better. Whatever we do, we have to do it in order to get out of here and get to a better place. We have to get to heaven. That is the exact opposite of our purpose. You know, God is in heaven. He doesn't get excited about our coming to heaven with him. He's excited about his coming down to earth with us. That's why he created the earth. How does it make any sense? God creates the earth so that we would get off.
You know, Rabbi, if I tell people all the time about that, is that, you know, we come here to earth and face what we face, and all of us have an individual journey. I mean, we are part of a collective, but yet we have our own individual journeys, right? And people ask me, well, what do I have to suffer for? Like, what does it have to hurt? And I mean, you know, it's 80, 90 years on average, but why can't it just be good? And especially these people that they're not really responsible for their challenges. You know, there's challenges in life that we are responsible for, our actions, our thoughts, or whatever, our sayings. And there are things in life that just come at us and we just have to surrender. So I tell them, you know, you can't really test the soul unless you put it in a human body, unless you bring it into this earth that God created. Because the soul is not, you know, when I had my experience, I felt like I was everywhere. I felt like I was everything. And I felt like I had no question marks. I had the answers to all the questions I've always wanted to know. And evil or negativity or all the things that we face and have to choose from in this physical consciousness did not exist. Simply were not allowed. It was a perfect feeling of bliss, of existing. And that's what I tell people. I say, so you cannot test the soul unless you bring him. But the thing is why God to begin with wanted to start this game, quote unquote.
What God started is a relationship, which is not a game. It's a painful process. Like right in the beginning of creation, God said, "It is not good to be alone." We think that he said that to Adam and that he was referring to Adam, telling him that he is not good being alone. But the deeper meaning is God was saying, "I'm creating you because I'm not good alone." So why did God create the world? Because he was alone. In other words, what could change for God? If he's already infinite and already perfect and already all powerful and all knowing, why would he do anything? What could he possibly gain? The only one thing: he was alone. Now, the mystery is, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with being alone? And the answer is, we don't know. There's nothing technically, practically, pragmatically wrong with being alone if you're perfect. So, not wanting to be alone is a divine symptom. Only God has that hang up. I'm perfect, I have everything, and it's not good enough. That's God. So, God says, I am perfect by myself, but what's good about it? It's not good to be alone. Not as hard to be alone. It's not hard. If you're perfect, you're perfect. But what's good about it? That's God. The most godly feeling a person can experience is, I'm not enough. As great as I am, as perfect as I am, as capable as I am, but what, just for me? No, doesn't make sense, does not work. That's godly, not spiritual, more than spiritual. It's something that only God should feel. How come we also feel it? Because we were created in God's image. Okay, we got it. So, one of the things that God breathes into us, which of course we call a soul means it can't be just me. Because if it's just me, there's no goodness, there's no purpose, there's no movement, there's no progress. Like if you meet God and he is perfect and eternal and infinite, you say, yeah, so what's happening? Nothing. So what are you looking forward to? Nothing. So what is the plan? Nothing. Being perfect is so sterile. So why did God start the whole thing? Because he wants someone beside him. And that's what we mean when we say Hashem Echad. Hashem is Yachid. He's the only one. And he doesn't like it. But he also doesn't want division. So what he wants is to replace Yachid with Echad. Echad means only one, because we're all part of the one, not only one because everyone else is excluded. So Yachid means exclusive. Echad means united. So God wants to be one with us, not one without us. So he creates Jews and he creates non-Jews. How do you bring God and human beings together? Well, two parts to the process. You want to bring God down to earth because God wants to be on earth. Well, the earth has to be receptive. God is not going to force himself on us. He wants a relationship, not a dictatorship. So we have to be receptive. It's like you want God to move into your house, well, clean it up. Make your house appropriate. But then you also have to invite God and motivate him to come into your house. So the non-Jewish nations of the world are here to prepare the world to be receptive. The Jewish role is to urge God to accept the invitation and come into the world. So we bring God down, the nations of the world raise the world upwards. Together, God and the earth become one.
And Rabbi, speaking about that, but in the process of being with us, there are these forces, there are these opposite forces that, some will name it the ego, some will call it, like in Judaism, Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, and the Catholics will call it the devil. And these forces that are somehow grounding us with fake illusions, with materialistic dreams, with things that really distract us from that sacred relationship we have with God. Why did he create these forces? So we can appreciate them more, or so we can just evolve through those and see them as more like an obstacle, or on your way to the top, and not something else that's trying to hurt you?
When the world becomes perfect, will we still have freedom of choice? You fall in love with a woman, obviously you have freedom of choice. Then you marry her. Now you don't have freedom of choice anymore? Feels like it, right? The dark side, the ego, the devil, whatever you want to call it, is independence. Because we feel independent from God, that's where all the dark stuff comes in. Independence can feel like separation. It can feel like competition. It can feel like a threat. God gave us independence, but independence has a very dark side to it. It's like children want to be independent of their parents, so they rebel. They hate their parents. They torture their parents. They make their parents miserable. Why? Because they have to be independent. But being independent necessarily comes by making somebody else miserable. The reason independence is important is because God wants a relationship. Or in simple language, God wants your love. But if he created you loving him, whose love is he getting? He's loving himself.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't give you the independence to love him or hate him, then he'll never get your love. So in order to have your love, God is in a dilemma. The only way to have your love is that you have the freedom of choice. But if you have the freedom of choice, you might hate him. The relationship is important enough to God that he will tolerate the hate. It's worth it. You'll hate me, you'll scream at me, but in the end, I'm going to get your love.
It reminds me of my theory of the action and reactions that we have in life. I know that there are, since the moment we are born into this physical consciousness, because I think that the soul is way more connected to the world of souls when we are babies and infants, and it's just something that's decreasing over time as these ego and all these other things and the kelipota, they call them in Kabbalah, take over and just wrapping us with everything sacred that came with us originally. Um, and I think that when we are born, there's like two forces that are born together, two opposite forces, and two journeys are formed. There is the body journey or the life journey, and there is the soul journey. The body journey is the journey that's solely affected by your actions and choices in this world. You want to be a successful doctor. You love medicine from age 7. You're obsessed with doctors and medicine. You're going to read about it. You're going to go to school. You're going to get straight A's, go to college, go to medical school. And here you go. You manifested your life of a doctor with a doctor salary, with doctor friends, with doctor interest. You're a doctor. And vice versa. I used to be a correctional officer in a maximum security prison. I used to see the underworld, the things that thankfully the public don't get to see, not only on the physical level, but it was worse on the spiritual level. When you contain so much agony and despair and negativity and you really feel like you're walking in the darkness. And some people needed help and some people needed light. And by the way, we had two Chabad people that came in the middle of nowhere, southern Illinois, just because there was one Jewish prisoner in a 3,500 inmate maximum security facility. And the energies were what caused me, because on the way back from work, I had the accident. So I learned that people can be professional criminals. They can choose to be. Some people are. They don't want to work for their money. They want to steal for their money. They want to commit crimes. They want to just not obey the law. Most likely, their future will be manifested as such that they're going to be behind bars or just hanging around the streets doing nothing productive. In both cases, they can't blame God. It was their choices, their actions. That's their life journey. Now, next to that, there is the soul journey. All the events that your actions, choices, talents, strength, connections, none of them would help you avoid them. For example, somebody get a sudden illness. You fall in love with the love of your life. You get married. We don't know. These events we can plan, we can pray about it, but we don't know exactly the details of when and who. We don't know when we're going to be born, to what country, what language, what generations. It just happens. And I tell people, stick to the soul journey, because it's a journey of where you take the back seat and enjoy the view and trust the driver, and not just taking turns left and right and then complain about your life. What do you think about that, Rabbi? About the two journeys?
Absolutely true. But somehow they interact, they overlap. They're not completely distinct. And that's part of what the Torah is all about. The Torah is this cookbook that tells you how to blend the two. You can be successful spiritually, you can be successful physically. But how do you create a harmony between them? I mean, it's pretty much like the matzav in Israel today. We all want to be spiritual and holy and good and peaceful. Yeah, but How do you make that happen in the physical? Not by exchanging the physical for spiritual, because spiritual without physical is nowhere. It's like we always think, if God is everything, then what's his problem? That's his problem. Everything is pretty much the same as nothing. If it's indiscriminate, everything equal, then there's nothing. Then you have nothing to focus on. I know when I go fishing and the river is big and I don't see a shore, I get a headache. Because there's nothing to focus on.
Mhm.
It's like you're seeing everything, and that's a headache. I got to see something, not everything, because everything and nothing are the same. So we say God created the world out of nothing. That's correct. It's also correct to say God created the world out of everything, right? Like in the beginning, there was no thing, there was just everything. If there's everything, then no one thing has any significance. So whatever you mention, it's, oh yeah, sure, there's that. Yeah, there's everything. You got to take something out of the everything in order to understand what the everything is. So the act of creation was God created something out of everything. So spiritual is everything. That's also nowhere, like outer space. The physical is too limited. One thing doesn't allow another thing. So how do you bring harmony to these two stories, to these two journeys?
Make them coexist.
Right. So for example, eating kosher. You serve God by eating kosher? No, you serve God by not eating. Eating is too physical. You can't serve God with eating. Well, then you've made too great a gap between the body and the soul. So we eat because God asked us to. So we're doing something spiritual. But it's so physical. Uh-huh, exactly.
Rabbi, I wanted to ask you and take you to another subject that we're going to talk about a little later, the book that you wrote. And it's about relationships, I believe. And, there's always the idea, and that I truly believe on, that you can find your one and only, that, they call it twin flames. It's pretty much the same soul shared with two separate bodies, really to serve their soul journey, their spiritual purpose, not just on the romantic side, but on building themselves, enlightening others. It's a whole project, a whole contract. And some people ask me, how do you manifest it, or can you manifest it, or is it something that everybody gets to have? Because to me, a relationship, the right way to do it, or with the right person on a soul level, is very, very important. It's very genuine, but a lot of people are confused.
Well, let's just say something about self-improvement. Anybody with a little intelligence and a little decency in their heart wants to improve. A human being who doesn't feel a need to improve has stopped being human. Vegetables don't need to improve. Actually, they do. Minerals don't need to improve. A stone doesn't need to improve. What does it mean, self-improvement? It's so interesting. Self-improvement means less self. You improve yourself by having less self. Every self-help book takes you in the wrong direction. The assumption is that self-help means be more of yourself. It's not good to be alone. The more you get into yourself, the more alone you are, and you're going in the wrong direction. Self-improvement means literally, how much importance do I see in you? How important are you to me? That's self-improvement. If I could go for an hour and not be self-conscious, that is divine. Self-conscious doesn't distinguish between highest self-image or low self-image. High, low, medium, too much self. Can't you get away from that subject for a minute? That is the healthiest self, the one you don't have to think about. So I wrote a Hebrew book. You know about the Hebrew book? The title of the Hebrew book is I Didn't Ask to Be Born. That is such an amazing feature in the human being. I don't ask to be born because I don't need to be. What do I need this for? Oh, I have to go, I have to see, I have to feel. No, I don't. No, I don't. Stop lying to me. I don't need to go. I don't need to see. I don't need anything. If I was never born, I would be perfectly content. So how did I get to be needy? This is the problem with all psychology. Psychology basically assumes that your needs are real, and the question is how to satisfy them. Wrong, wrong, wrong. You don't need eroticism. You don't need power. You don't need control. You don't need anything. The sooner we get to that, the sooner we realize that, the sooner the world will become perfected. Because if I think I need, I'm already wrong and I'm already getting depressed. Even if I have what I need, it's still depressing. It's depressing to need. See, psychology assumes it's depressing to not have what you need. But that's only half true. The real depression is the fact that I need in the first place. Like the expression, what do I need this for? I don't need this.
So, Rabbi, let me challenge you here, if you would, Your Honor. So, why would we need the help of the angels, for example?
We don't.
We don't.
Look, if you need to survive and you need to live and you need to overcome your difficulty, then if the angels can help, then yeah, then you need their help. But I need their help in what?
But aren't prayers some form of need? Like you pray for help, you pray for a miracle. Your father, heaven forbid, is laying in a hospital, and you need. You can't do anything. Like I said, it's part of your soul journey. So you're
Yeah.
reacting, you're surrendering, you're accepting, but you also
Mm.
need help. You think?
It's fake news. It's fake news. Like a few examples. A mother gets ready to go out. Very important event. She gets all dressed up, gets her makeup on. She's on her way out the door, and her kid falls down a flight of stairs and he's all bloodied up. The mother says, I don't need this. Oh, you don't? Did anybody ever suggest that you needed this? Why are you the subject? The kid is bleeding, and you're thinking, I do need, I don't need. Who's talking about you? How did you get to be the topic when your kid is bleeding? So the mother says, I'm going to be late to the meeting. I have to stay home. No, you don't have to stay home. Your child needs you to stay home. So whose need are we talking about? Why would the mother say, oh, I need to take care of my child? No, you don't. You just finished saying, I don't need this. The child needs attention. Why are you stealing that from the child? Why are you taking his need and making it yours? So we got to be careful when we say need. I don't need to eat. Ever, ever, ever. Hey, sometimes I enjoy it. I don't need this. The need to eat is such a curse. It's such an unwelcome burden. It's a handicap. It cripples me. I can't finish a product if it takes more than 3 hours because I got to stop to eat. Who did this to me? So for me to say I need to eat, such a lie. This boy comes to yeshiva overseas and he says to the dean, I need to call my mother to tell her that I arrived. The dean says, you need? He says, yeah, I need to call my mother. The dean says, you need? So the boy says, my mother needs me to call her. Can I use the phone? And the dean says, better. Stop lying. We adopt needs as if they're ours. I need to sleep. I need to wake up. I need to accomplish things. Half my life I have to sleep it away. Who did this to me? It's not correct that I need to sleep. I need to stay up and I can't. So who did this to me?
You know, Rabbi, that reminds me. I'm sorry. That reminds me of there's a saying in Judaism that the soul says that if you had a choice in the matter, it would have come to the world. Like the soul would rather not be born into this physical world than be born to this physical world. Maybe because everything you just described,
Yeah.
that things that I didn't ask for myself, I didn't have a say in the matter.
Yeah.
It showed up. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So here's where godly creator and creation come together. Every time I eat, I am serving God. Because the only reason I'm eating is because He designed me that way. Every time a cow eats, it's serving God. It's following God's design. So when I eat, I'm eating because God created me with a need to eat. But I sin against him when I claim that it's my need. See, that's where the independence becomes ugly. Don't plagiarize. Don't take God's need and say it's yours. Don't take his commandments and say it's your idea. Tell the truth. You sleep because God designed you to sleep. Every human being says, "Oh, I'm so tired. I need to sleep." Why do you do that? Just be honest. Just honest. I need to get to heaven. You need? God designed you to bring him down to earth, and you need to get to heaven? You're such a liar. Stop lying. Religion lies. Psychology lies. Secular thinking is a lie. Why do you have to lie? Why can't you just be honest? That's why the higher education, the bigger the lie. If you go to college, it's a lie. If you go to graduate school, it's the big lie. Look, there are two things that are ugly in the world today: anti-Semitic, vicious, cruel religion and colleges. Right? 78% of human beings in this world support Israel today. So who doesn't? Either people with religion, people with a college degree. Everybody else supports Israel. There is no morality in religion, and there is no morality in higher education, secular education.
You know, Rabbi, I want to take you. I got a couple of more questions, and they are almost personal. You know, when I had my experience, when I visited myself at my purest form, let's put it that way, when I saw myself at my purest form, I realized that our soul does not live only in this lifetime at this very same time, and that's the only time. Time is something that is only can be measured in this physical world. Our soul knows no time limit, meaning at the same time as we are existing here, we're existing in other dimensions. I mean, in other lifetimes, in other consciousness. When people say, I'm going to connect to my higher self, or I'm going to connect to my inner self, it's not literally inside their body or above their head in the ceiling. It's to, and that's what I felt like you have some sort of an umbilical cord made out of light connected to something greater. We exist in multiple places, in multiple times, multiple dimensions at the same time. Now, and another thing that happened to me, and people also ask me, you know, spiritual versus religion, you said religion lies, and how do people prior to religion, and I'm going to take you, and it's strictly Judaism, you know, in the original Bible, there was a book that was somehow excluded from the Bible, the book of Hanoch, of Enoch. And that was obviously way before the Ten Commandments, way before the days of Noah, even. That was around the same generations. And that Noah was, that Enoch was able, or described in the book, in Hebrew, in the Torah, how he was able to even walk with Hashem, walk with God while he was alive. He was practicing his own, but he didn't have a Torah to guide him. So my question is, how did prior to the Torah, prior to religion, where people, and I know that back then people were closer to God than ever. We have something which is the decreasing of the generations. The more we go into generation, the further we go from our sacredness, or from innocence, or spiritual innocence, or whatever you want to call it. But how did, because I keep resonating with how people worked God then, how they were close to Him to a point of even walking with Him while they were alive. I mean, some even in Judaism, we know about some tzaddiks that were able to enter heaven while they were alive. They didn't have to pass to go to what we call the afterlife or heaven, or to that state of consciousness. And spiritual people really trying to seek that right away, or to know, to think that it's still possible in this time, in this lifetime. But was it possible back then? I mean, were these stories just stories, or actually, Enoch was able to walk with God?
He was, but he wasn't able to walk for God. God gave Adam and Chava 6 commandments, which means 6 ways to be godly, not spiritual, because they were spiritual. I mean, if you're living in Gan Eden, you're pretty spiritual, right? You're in the Garden of Eden. You're not really physical. And that's why you were not going to die ever. You were going to be eternal, immortal. So they were very spiritual. When God gave them the commandments, it was an opportunity to become godly, which means doing something for God. The people who were sinful back then were spiritual, but they didn't do anything for God. At Mount Sinai, God finally revealed everything that we can do for Him, not just 6 things. So there's the physical, there's the spiritual, and there's the godly. 3 realities. It's almost like there's earth, there's outer space, and there's the sun. Our job is to make sure that the physical and the spiritual are elevated to the level of godly. So the soul, for example, is very spiritual, doesn't need to be born, doesn't need to come down to earth. And why does it? To become more spiritual? No. To be more useful to God's need. And that is, I think, the most controversial and the most powerful word, God's need. Because we were told, and it's a lie, we were told for thousands of years that God doesn't need, human beings need. That's the big lie.
He does need us.
We don't need, He does need. The exact opposite.
In Hebrew, it says, Shuva elai v'shuva elechem. Come back to me first, so I can come back to you.
In order to come back to you, that's my need. Or even says, Mo Hashem elikecha shoyel me'imach. What does that mean? What does He need from you? What are the first words of the 10 Commandments? Anochi Hashem Elikecha. In English, they translate it, I am God, your God. I don't know what that means. I'm your God. Or I'm God. What does it mean? I am God, you're God. This is how you read it. Anechi Hashem. I, God. Elekecha. I'm yours. I am God, and you think I need nothing, right? No, I am God, and I need you. Not Anechi Hashem Elekecha. Anechi Hashem. You want to know who I am? I am yours. So what did the Jews say? Na'aseh v'nishma. We're all yours. What else could we say? What could you say when somebody says, I'm yours? You know what the other nations said when God came and gave them the Torah? God said, I am yours. And they said, what do you want? God said, never mind. Never mind. You're not romantic enough for me.
You know, it brings me to goosebumps because, so I think that's really one. I mean, to me, the main purpose in life is to be like God. When people ask me how to be godly, because you talked about being godly, which should be the combination of the spiritual and the physical, just like the earth, the space and the sun. And I think and I tell always, and I resonate with it so much because I tell people, you have to give from a place you feel something was taken from you. Each time. To be godly is to be unneedy. Just like you said in the beginning, is to really give from a place you feel something was taken from you. When you have so much and you give, okay, you did something good, you did a good act of kindness, but you give, when you feel it from a place like something was taken from you, now you practice true giving. If I'm giving you time and you're the least important person right now on my calendar, but I'm giving you time on my busiest day of the year, I stopped everything and I said, now I'm going to give you a call. Now I give from a place that I felt something was taken from me. And to me, any mitzvahs, any good deeds like that, that's why it says that between one another to God is way between us to God, because he doesn't need anything. Correct?
The way to say it is, godly means that if you need, I feel like I'm missing something. Not I need. If I hear that you're needy, then I'm missing something. See, actually, that's a very, today they call it superhuman. If your problem bothers me as if it's my problem, and it really isn't, but the fact that you have a problem keeps me awake at night, that's superhuman. That God needs me makes me feel like I'm missing something. A husband who knows that his wife needs something which he doesn't need, but because she needs it, he can't sleep until it happens. The ability to feel another person's need as if you were missing something. That's the difference between being needy myself or feeling needed. If Hashem needs me, that's all I need. That's it. I have a life. He needs, I can do what he needs. Perfect. I need, and he can give me what I need. It's already depressing.
Rabbi, last question with your permission for today. And it's about the situation here in Israel. You know, I tell people that, especially in this time, I'm the most fearless I've ever been in my life. I'm the most accepting. I don't want to say I'm happy for what happened. What happened was unfortunate, but again, there's reason for everything. But from now on, looking forward at this situation, accepting it with surrenders, with optimism, and I'll let nothing worry. Do you think that what's going on right now is just another one of these, Israel Arab world conflict, or are we actually witnessing something that it's because of the severity of the events, because of the shock, because of the confusion? I see with the players, with the nations involved, I really see the book of, Ezekiel 38, 39, and the book of Ezekiel is describing that, biblically speaking. But do you see that as a biblical event, Rabbi, before we end?
Every event is a biblical event.
Yeah.
Every event leads us closer to Mashiach. But there are painful events and there are pleasant events. They both lead us to Mashiach. Why there has to be painful events, I don't know. And it doesn't feel good at all. So we should not be comfortable or accepting of pain, other people's pain. The issue really is the pain is real. But what are we seeing? What are we seeing? Oh, we're seeing horrible things. People are inhumane. What we're seeing is once again irrationally, ridiculously, unexplainable. The whole world's attention is on Israel. How does that happen? We are an insignificant, tiny fraction of the human population. The whole world, we have the world's attention. It came through a painful, unacceptable series of events. But look at what is in front of your eyes. The whole world is looking at Jews. With the spotlight on us, we got to say something really meaningful. When you got the whole world's attention, what are you going to do? Tell a joke and sing a song? You have the whole world's attention. Is there something you can say to the world that is meaningful? Are you the light to the nations? Are you Or Lagoyim? So until now, for 2,000 years, we complained that we can't get anybody's attention. Nobody wants to listen to us. We're insignificant. They just step on us and spit us out. Okay. Now you got the world's attention. What were you going to say? What were you going to say if the world was listening? Now they're listening. Say something. And don't mess it up by saying we're the only democracy in the Middle East. That's not what the world needs to hear. Don't make jokes. This is a serious time. So we're a democracy. Oh, come on. That's the best you can do? America's a democracy. England's a democracy. Canada's a democracy. What are you saying? For this, we need Jews? Say something Jewish. If we could say something really significant to the world, that's Mashiach. When Jews become the teachers, then the world will be normal. When we act like students, we make everybody crazy.
Wow, that sums it up beautifully. Yeah, but with the pain thing, I remember listening to one of your lectures, and you were speaking so beautifully about the woman in labor who's in so much pain, and it's a pain that would drive a woman who's not even pregnant crazy. She would be crawling on the floor and going to every expert in the world to figure out why she's having labor pain and she's not even pregnant. But the pregnant one, the one who's in active labor, embrace the pain, understand the purpose and what's going to come afterwards, in the rebirth. So in that matter, that's how I look at things. But you're right, we got everybody's attention, and I think the world is just is seeing what's going on. Sometimes, they say a picture is better than a million words, and I think that right now they're seeing better than a million words that we can say. They're just seeing. It's almost like someone presented them the truth finally, and what are the sides. But again, wow, Rabbi, first of all, I want to thank you for this very deep conversation. It warms up my heart, especially here in Israel. I think that conversations such as these are really helping the effort of good versus evil, at least in the metaphysical level. Thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom you shared with us. And if you have just one last thing to say to the people of Israel, I would make sure a lot of them are tuning in.
The final thought is, we are not going back to normal after this is over. Never. We're never going back to where we were. We're going to a much, much better, improved reality. There is never going to be another split among the Jewish people. I would love to hear from both sides of the protests that were going on before this happened. Tens of thousands of people protesting, marching, screaming, shouting. I want to hear from one of them. It was all so silly. What were we arguing about? The whole thing is just so silly. First of all, it was a question of how the democracy is supposed to work. Should it be this kind of democracy or that kind of democracy? And it's so petty because the whole democracy is a joke. We are not a democracy. We are a godly people. Democracy is good if it's run by godly people. If it's run by criminals, democracy is just as bad as communism. Everybody says, if communism was run by good people, it could have been a nice idea. Anything good people do can be a nice idea. But democracy without good people, it's corrupt, it's stupid, it's ridiculous. You go to war and they're killing your civilians, but you're not allowed to kill their civilians. What is this, a game we're playing here? It's a stupid idea. It goes against all common sense. Why did we fall for it? Why are we asking the secular world to teach us morality? A couple of people got together in Geneva and decided how we should fight. Who were those people? Many of them were Europeans. Europeans. The people who made the Holocaust. And now they're dictating to us how to fight a moral war. So, what is a Jewish concept? Moral war. The Jewish concept of a moral war is you're not allowed to shoot anybody unless it will bring peace. We can shoot and kill 20 civilians, but not 1,000. If killing 20 doesn't bring peace, then you're not allowed to kill the 20. If killing 1,000 does bring peace, then that's exactly what you need to do. So stop playing the game with numbers. Do whatever will bring peace for at least 40 years. So far, we haven't done that. We haven't had 30 years of peace. If you don't produce a 40-year peace, you failed. Now, what will it take to bring peace with the enemy for 40 years? You know the movie The Godfather? What will it take to make that rich man do what you want? A horse's head. Well, if that's what it takes, that's what you do. We still haven't figured out what would convince the enemy not to fight. We haven't figured that out.
There's a big confusion going around here.
So here's the rules of engagement according to Judaism. A moral war is a war that ends very quickly because you did exactly what is necessary to discourage the enemy for 40 years. When you announce this is going to be a long, long war, bad news. A long war means a whole generation is going to grow up living under war. So not only is there a war, you just destroyed an entire generation.
That makes sense.
2 generations? 100-year war? So war is where you do exactly what it takes to stop the enemy for 40 years. Do it as quick as possible.
And the IDF used to do it back in the day.
Protecting their civilians? That is such a ridiculous, childish idea. Sure, 2 friendly countries can get together and say, look, you don't kill my civilians, I won't kill your civilians. Sure, because we're not going to war. England and America can say, let's have a Geneva conference and make some rules. Yeah, fine. But for one side to live by the Geneva conference and the other side not, that's out and out suicide. Why are you not, you're not allowed to do that? I will risk my soldier to save your civilian? What, your soldier is not worth anything? Israel went into Jenin because there were terrorists there. You know how many times they gone into Jenin? At least 4 times. Same place, same problem, same thing all over again. And each time, instead of bombing them, we go in on foot. And we lose 20 soldiers, 23 soldiers. Who says you're allowed to do that? The Geneva Conference? I think we have to make a Jerusalem conference. And in the Jerusalem conference, we decide that if you throw a stone at an Israeli policeman, you are punishable by death. That's our conference.
I don't think a lot of people, especially my followers from around the world, know really the reality, the fact that, you know, in that terrible massacre that, like Rabbi said, the whole world is talking about 24/7. If you open Fox News, it's 24/7. Even 9/11 was not covered as much as this is going on. It's almost if they know that is a puzzle piece from a way bigger picture. I don't know, but what I'm saying is that when you're talking civilians and when you make that separation between those, you know, they call them, some call them militants, some don't even call them terrorists, but many civilians, up to 1,000 civilians, took active part in this massacre. So don't let the media tell you otherwise. I mean, I know for a fact, okay, because I do have a military background still, an active part, civilians, those so-called civilians took an active part in all these horrors that happened there, that I try my best for my own spiritual well-being not to be exposed to unless I need updates. But it was, you know, it makes the Nazis look like, and I don't know how I'm even capable of saying this, but it makes the Nazis look like amateurs as far as the horrific things that were done here on not only on a Jewish holiday, but on Shabbos morning, on a holy day. So you have so much unholiness. Like if you could take the scale and take the most unholy things you can do for God or to a person, and the holiest of things you can do for God and for yourself, and you just let them, like you said, coexist. Like it just things here. I'm telling you, things here are merged. Like people are spiritual by force. Even those who were never spiritual, all they do is just they're looking up. I'm telling you, we go to the supermarket, like people with some people, like the enemies with their heads down and the Jews with their heads up. I'm telling you, it's symbolic. It's crazy, but this is what's going on. So
We are the chosen people, and we can save the world from its own stupidity. If they would listen, we could save them. Without us, they're lost. They're gone. They know the difference between right and wrong. They don't even know the difference between a man and a woman.
well, Rabbi Friedman.
One more powerful thing.
Mhm.
Somebody was saying, do you know that they were what was it? I forgot the word.
Is it a Hebrew word?
No, an English word. They were molesting babies. They were what is the word? Gosh. Anyway, they were saying that they were chopping up babies. And some Americans said, you mean like the trans people? What are the trans people doing to their babies? This world is so fablunged. We're so blind. Without Jewish teachings, without the Jewish perspective on the Bible, the world is finished. We are the last hope. If they would listen, we could save the world. And the world needs to be saved, not just from us.
Well, strong words, Rabbi Friedman. I really, really appreciate your time. I know this is a time of chaos. I mean, it is. I mean, that's the only way I can describe it. If I could describe chaos 5 years ago, or you know what? If I could describe chaos, what is it? 16 days ago, 18 days ago, before it happened, back then I could have thought about anything. And if I could describe chaos now, it's a whole new meaning. And like you said, I hope people. I mean, we almost had to be the sacrifice. We almost had to. We did have to sacrifice a lot from our people, and especially, I mean, this whole massacre. If you think about it, it's not mostly it's civilians. It's a massacre against civilians, innocent people, and every eye is cannot stay dry when they really hear about the horrendous crime. Even though some people try to deny it, unfortunately. And we're still fighting a battle between the truth and false information that comes from the colleges you're talking about. We witness what's going on in America now, and I just can't believe that anybody would even step outside and protest against Israel in days like this when they know what happened. I mean, but again, like you said, 78, I think even more of the world really supporting us, even countries that just a few decades ago did exactly that to us. So there is actually that's the true global spiritual awakening, is that we are waking up to the truth. But Rabbi, I appreciate your time.
Yeah.